We're still searching for the big storyline featuring the Jackal, and we'll get there. Just hold on as I weed through another batch of issues. So welcome to Kevin's commentary on comics. Now hold on to your shorts as we dive right into an episode of mini reviews of the Amazing Spider-Man issues that lead to the big confrontation with the Jackal. Now these issues are brought to us by Jerry Conway, the writer, and Ross Andrew, the artist. So let's go! So first up we have the Amazing Spider-Man number 141 from February 1975. The man's name appears to be Mysterio. Now that's quite a title. So we open up this baby with none other than the Spider-Mobile. Yeah, we haven't seen this thing since it debuted in issue number 130. Nothing like a long played out plot, eh? So Spidey is taking the buggy out for a spin when the cops start following him. Yeah, you see an unlicensed, boldly colored dune buggy traveling along the streets of New York with a masked man behind the wheel. That might just get the attention of the local police force. So Spidey was using the car to search for the Jackal because swinging building from building isn't good enough. I don't really understand that. Driving around on the streets probably isn't as efficient as swinging from building to building, I would think. But hey, gotta use this little Spider-Mobile somehow. So anyway, Spidey tries to lose the cops, but thanks to some fog, he drives right off a pier and sinks the Spider-Mobile into the Hudson River. So we cut to Peter trying to stay awake in class and getting scolded by his biochemistry teacher, Professor Miles Warren. Now after the scolding, he meets up with Mary Jane Watson and they walk together, but Peter's thoughts are still on Gwen Stacy. He really wonders if he'll ever love anyone else again, but he just doesn't know. You know, if he doesn't know, maybe holding hands with MJ isn't sending the right message to her. Huh? So later, Peter is out web swinging when he suddenly gets surrounded by fog, and out of that fog comes Mysterio. Now, Mysterio manages to get in some good blows on Spidey, but then does what Mysterio does best and unleashes a set of illusions of Spidey's foes on poor Spidey. Now, these must have been pretty good illusions because Spider-Man is totally fooled by them and batters his hands against a wall trying to fight them all. Mysterio gets away, and later, Peter is talking to Betty Brant and Ned Leeds at the Daily Bugle and mentions he's got in the middle of a brawl with Spider-Man and Mysterio, which is why his hands are all bandaged up. He posits that Mysterio is apparently out of jail, but then Ned Leeds interrupts and says, hey, Mysterio died in prison almost a year ago. Peter thinks, wow, I'm insane. Next up, The Amazing Spider-Man number 142 from March 1975. We're calling this one Dead Man's Bluff. So Spidey is trying to recover his Spider-Mobile that fell into the Hudson River last issue. He realizes he can't, but he's also preoccupied with the notion that maybe he's going crazy because he's seeing all these villains and thinking it was Mysterio, but apparently Mysterio died in prison, so what's going on? He gets out of the water, and sure enough, Mysterio attacks again. Spidey tries to web him up, but only finds an empty shell of webbing after he does so. Mysterio can't vanish, right? What is going on? We cut to the Daily Bugle where J. Jonah Jameson is pretty happy because he thinks he's defeated Spider-Man. Oh yeah, JJJ is apparently working with this Mysterio guy who is making Spidey think he's seeing ghosts. So, Peter isn't going crazy, but JJJ probably has. Now this was pretty normal back in the day for Jameson to come up with some plan to get at Spider-Man. It kind of seems like dealing with all these bad guys should have put Jameson in jail too. But I don't think that ever happened. Somehow he manages to stay behind the scenes. Anyway, the gang finds out that Ned Leeds and Betty Brant are getting married, and as Peter and MJ leave the Bugle, Peter spots a very familiar-looking girl walking through the streets. He runs after her, but she gets away. Who is this girl? Well, come on, really? It's obviously Gwen Stacy or someone that looks like her, or is this just another illusion? Peter really isn't sure. Actually, he's becoming more sure that he's going crazy. Well, hold on, tap the brake on that one. Like, we turn the page and Peter, we see that Peter figures out that someone else must be in the Mysterio suit because Peter has discovered some device on his chest that is producing the illusions. He puts together some sort of tracking device and goes on the hunt. Now, this is something that's always kind of bothered me with Spider-Man. Yeah, Peter is a genius and entirely capable of creating devices like this, but where does he get the money to buy the materials for such devices? I mean, his web shooters are a testament to his genius, but he seems like he's always struggling for cash, so how does he come up with the dough for these gizmos? I guess he just manages somehow, but it has always been something that has made me wonder. So he manages to find Mysterio at his hideout and quite quickly defeats him. He discovers the new Mysterio is Danny Burkhart, who is another stuntman who worked with the original Mysterio, Quentin Beck. Apparently, the whole scheme was funded by JJJ, as alluded to before, and now that Burkhart is in jail, he wants Jameson to get him a lawyer. All right, so another problem here. What crime is Burkhart in jail for? He didn't rob a bank or anything like that. He was just after Spider-Man and essentially didn't break any laws that I could see in the pages of this book. So on what charges is he being held? Another mystery or Mysterio. Anyway, JJJ races out of the office and heads to Paris to hide out from Mysterio, who is in jail, so I'm not sure why he was in a panic. But that does lead us to our next book, The Amazing Spider-Man number 143 from April 1975, and the wind cries Cyclone. So we open this one up with Spider-Man seeing what appears to be Gwen Stacy walking on the street. He watches her go into the subway and wonders if he's seeing a ghost or is still going insane. He thought that all the illusions were from Mysterio, but maybe those illusions has caused Peter to dredge up some sort of weird memories and is starting to see things for real. Peter gives up thinking about it and heads to the Daily Bugle, where Robbie Robertson wants him to go to Paris with him because something is up with Jameson. He needs Robbie to bring $1 million, but doesn't say why. Peter says sure, but he needs to get permission from his biochemistry teacher, Professor Warren. Really? He needs a leave of absence from a college professor? Maybe this was something that was done in the 70s, but I don't see why it would make a difference if he skipped some classes as long as Peter kept his grades up. I mean, he must be missing a lot of classes anyway. Oh well. So MJ drops Peter off at the airport and they share a pretty passionate kiss. Things are starting to heat up betwixt the two of them. They get to Paris and Peter dons his Spidey duds to follow Robbie as Robbie goes to meet the bad guys to determine where they're going to drop off the money. This didn't make much sense to me either. Why not just take the money and give it to him at that point in time? But, gotta play this one out. Got pages to fill. So some goons in costumes get the jump on Robbie and Spidey intervenes. Unfortunately, these guys are led by the Cyclone, who can turn into a living whirlwind. And he knocks Spidey into a wall and takes a building down on top of him. Cyclone takes off with Robbie and states that if he doesn't need his money, both men will die. Those both men being Robbie and Jameson, by the way. And finally, we have The Amazing Spider-Man number 144 from May 1975. And just look at that cover. Spider-Man finally confronts the girl with Gwen Stacy's boots, right? Well, let's see. By the way, this one is called The Delusion Conspiracy, and it opens with Spider-Man crawling around where he was beaten up by the Cyclone. He makes his way back to the hotel where he gets a note from the bad guys to sit tight. Meanwhile, back in New York, Aunt May and Anna Watson are on their way to a movie when Aunt May sees someone that makes her faint. Which, really, she does that a lot. It's her number one power. Yes, she sees what appears to be Gwen Stacy, so now we know Peter isn't going insane unless he and Aunt May are sharing the same insanity, which doesn't make sense, but hey, there are lots of things in comics that don't make sense, so who knows. Back in Paris, the bad guys show up, give Peter a punching, and tells him to meet them at Notre Dame with the ransom. Couldn't that have information just been passed along in the note that he got? I mean, why chance people seeing them in costume? I didn't quite get that either. But Peter gets the money and stops by a hardware store on his way, and he leaves with a big trolley full of equipment. I'm going to assume here that he used some of the ransom money to buy this equipment. No way he has enough money for something that big. We cut to Cyclone, who's inside the cathedral at Notre Dame, where he tells Jameson that he developed this Cyclone weapon to sell to NATO, but NATO didn't want to buy it because they got all of their weaponry from America, so he's kind of pissed off and wants revenge. Spidey shows up, teases the flunkies with the ransom and takes them out. He and Cyclone battle, and Cyclone does get the better of Spider-Man, but then Spidey unveils his secret weapon, a fan. Now this fan, however, creates a reverse vortex that cancels out Cyclone's, and Cyclone gets knocked out. After the fight, Spidey uses a remote-controlled tape recorder to fool Jameson and Robertson into thinking he's up on the balcony taking pictures, while those two were standing next to Spider-Man. Remote-controlled tape recorder, another expense that again, I assume, came out of that ransom money. I wonder if JJJ missed that money. I'm sure he did, because he is a cheapskate. So Peter gets back to New York, where he finds out that Aunt May is in the hospital, and the explanation for it is upstairs in his apartment. Who or what is it? Well, it's none other than Gwen Stacy, alive and well. What is going on? Okay, we are getting so closer to the end of all of this, and you can see why I had to spend a little bit of time on these issues so we can get the proper setup. So I'm Kevin, and that was my commentary. So our villains here were Mysterio, although not the original one, and Cyclone. Now I've always liked Mysterio, but in my mind, no one has ever drawn him as well as Steve Ditko did, who came up with the original design for Mysterio. I really want to see Mysterio used in the movies. He has such a cool look. Yeah, maybe it's just a fishbowl on his head, but I've always dug it. I've also liked the fact that he used special effects and not magic as the tools of his trade. I don't remember, did he ever get like real magic powers? I'm sure someone's at some point wrote something where he did get, magic powers of some sort, but I think that takes away from what makes the character so cool. Now, as for Cyclone, well, nice power set, but again, I think he was nothing more than a C-level villain at best. Not that Mysterio was an A-lister, but he was used quite a bit more than Cyclone ever was. The original Cyclone was ultimately killed by the Scourge of the Underworld, but someone has taken up that name and powers since then. So your thoughts on either Mysterio or Cyclone or both? Well, leave them in the comments below. We have 5 or 6 more issues to go. We'll race through the next 2 in the next episode and then dive deeper into the remaining ones until we get to, well, again, I'm sure you know where we're heading with all this. Keep up with me by subscribing, and it would please me to no end if you liked and shared this video. So until next time, have a great day, and I will see ya.